I never thought I'd see him again like this, standing under a ceiling of golden lights, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, smiling at a woman who used to call me best friend. People say time heals everything, but time didn't heal me. It sharpened me. And I stood near the back of the hall, clutching my small clutch purse like it held my courage together. The air smelled of roses, champagne, and lies. Laughter echoed around me, elegant, careless laughter, the kind that only exists when people think they're living in a perfect moment. And yet, as I watched him slip a ring onto her finger, all I could think was how poetic. The two people who once swore loyalty to me now standing together, promising eternity to each other. A camera flash went off. Everyone cheered. I smiled, not out of love, not out of pain. But because this was exactly where I needed to be, they thought I was here as the forgiving friend, the one who'd moved on, who had learned to smile again. But forgiveness is a funny word. Sometimes it looks like peace on the outside and strategy on the inside. I watched her veil brushing against his arm, and for a second, I wondered if she felt even a flicker of guilt beneath that lace. But no, her face glowed with pride, not remorse. She looked happy. And that's when I realized she truly believed she'd won, but I wasn't here to interrupt the ceremony. I wasn't here to scream, to cause a scene, or to ruin her day. No, that would be too easy. Too expected. I came to finish something. And something I started the day they broke me. The day they both chose each other over truth. My plan didn't need destruction, it only needed patience, because the most satisfying kind of revenge is the one that unfolds while you're smiling. The officiant's voice blurred in the background as my memories pulled me somewhere else. To another day, another version of me. The one who still believed in him, the one who didn't know betrayal could wear such a familiar face. I remember the first time he told me he loved me. It wasn't dramatic, no fireworks. We were sitting in the office cafeteria, 2 cups of coffee between us, deadlines screaming in the background. He looked at me and said, "You make chaos feel like calm," and I believed him. It's funny how simple words can build entire worlds and how fast they can burn down. A murmur rippled through the crowd, pulling me back to the present. They were exchanging vows now. Her voice trembled, not from guilt, but excitement. She said he was her safe place. Safe. The same word I once used for him. My heart didn't ache anymore, not the way it used to. The pain had turned into something quieter, something colder, like ashes after a fire, still warm, but lifeless. And as I stood there, I realized something beautiful. I had finally reached the point where pain no longer controlled me. He once said I'd never be able to let go of him. He was right, for a while. But what he didn't know was that I didn't need to let go to move on. I only needed to remember, because remembering was my strength. It was how I learned to play the long game. Again, I took a slow breath, my lipstick perfect smile unwavering. Somewhere in the front row, she caught my eye. Just for a second, and I swear I saw her expression flicker like a shadow passing through sunlight. That's the thing about guilt. It doesn't vanish just because you dress it in white. She looked away quickly. And he didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He never really noticed much at all. The ceremony ended. Applause, cheers. 2 souls bound together in vows built on betrayal. And me, I clapped too. Because the show was over, but the story wasn't. As the guests began to move toward the reception area, I stepped aside, letting them pass. My phone buzzed in my hand, a quiet vibration, one I'd been waiting for all evening. I glanced at the screen. I got a single message. It's done, no name, no details, just 2 words that meant everything. I slipped my phone back into my purse, feeling my pulse steady. That message was the beginning of their unraveling, something they wouldn't even notice until it was too late. I wasn't going to expose them in front of everyone. No, that would make me look bitter. I wanted them to look at me and think I had moved on. I wanted them to believe I had forgiven, because only then would they lower their guard, and when they did, the truth would find them on its own. It wasn't revenge for the sake of satisfaction, it was justice, wrapped in patience. They took something from me, love, trust, friendship, but what they didn't realize was that they also gave me something, clarity. And clarity is powerful. As I turned to leave the hall, the wind caught the edge of my shawl. The night outside was soft and cold. The city lights shimmered like broken glass across the skyline. I walked down the marble steps, heels echoing like quiet promises. For the first time in months, I wasn't trembling. I was ready because this wasn't the end of my story. It was just the moment my smile became my weapon. Before everything fell apart, there was us. Just 2 people caught somewhere between ambition and affection. If I close my eyes even now, I can still hear the soft hum of the office, printers clicking, keyboards tapping, the steady rhythm of a life that felt simple. That's where it began, not with fireworks, not with fate, but with something quieter, a shared laugh over spilled coffee, a late-night project that turned into a conversation about dreams, a good morning text that somehow became a ritual. He wasn't extraordinary. He didn't walk in and steal my breath like in movies. He just stayed every day with his easy smile and kind eyes until his presence became part of my routine. The good part. We worked on the same floor, separated by only a few desks and a dozen stolen glances. He was the kind of person who noticed things, the way I bit my lip when I was stressed, the way I scribbled notes in blue ink instead of black, the way I always forgot to finish my tea. One day, during a particularly chaotic morning, I was buried under reports when he walked by and quietly placed a cup of steaming tea on my desk. Before it gets cold, he said, that small gesture did something I didn't expect. It made me feel seen. That's how it starts, doesn't it? Not with declarations, but with moments that whisper instead of shout. Our friendship grew in between work breaks and messages sent long after office hours. We started sharing music, movies, memes, secrets. Soon his name on my phone felt like home. I still remember the night he told me he couldn't sleep without hearing my voice. I laughed, thinking he was teasing. But he wasn't. He said, "You calm the noise in my head." And that's when I realized I was already his even before he asked me to be. Weeks turned into months. Coffee breaks became lunch dates became long drives became a life I didn't know I was building around him. He would pick me up after work, music playing softly, his hand reaching for mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. We'd talk about everything, the future, our fears, the kind of home we'd have one day. He'd say, "You and I against the world." And I believed him with all the naivety of someone who hadn't learned yet what people are capable of. Our colleagues used to tease us. They said we were the office couple, even before we admitted it ourselves. And when we finally did, everything felt like it fell perfectly into place, like this was exactly how life was supposed to go. So he met my friends, my family. He fit in easily, charming, polite, thoughtful. My mother once told me, "He looks at you like he's already written your future." And I smiled because I thought she was right. But life has a way of writing stories that you never see coming. Looking back now, I can see the signs, the small, almost invisible changes, the late replies, the subtle distance. The conversations that ended quicker than before, but at the time I explained it all away. He was tired, busy, stressed. I trusted him because love without trust isn't love at all, it's surveillance. And I didn't want to be the kind of person who needed proof of being loved. We celebrated our first anniversary in his apartment. Candles, music, laughter. He gifted me a book I had mentioned once months before, something I didn't even remember telling him about. Now, inside the book was a small note that said, "You make me better." I remember crying happy tears back then. Back then. I had no idea those same words would echo in my head months later, not as comfort, but as irony. Because while I was busy building a life around him, he was learning how to live without me. Still, those memories, the good ones, feel too real to let go. The way he'd call me during lunch just to hear me rant about my boss. Or the way he'd hold my hand in traffic and tap his thumb softly against my skin to the beat of whatever song was playing. The way he'd look at me like I was the only one in the room. I didn't know that love could feel so right and still be wrong. One evening, after work, we stayed late to finish a presentation. Everyone else had gone home. The office was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels almost sacred. He looked at me and said, "Do you think people can lose themselves in love?" I remember laughing, maybe, but only if they forget who they are. He smiled, but something in his eyes lingered. A shadow I didn't understand then, now I do. He was already slipping away. He once told me that he admired my strength, that he could never imagine hurting me. And maybe that's the worst part, the lies that don't sound like lies until it's too late. When I think of us now, it feels like watching an old movie, one I know the ending to, but still can't stop watching. There's a strange comfort in the beginning, even when you know where it leads. Sometimes I scroll back through old photos, us at the beach, us in the car, us laughing over nothing. Every picture feels like a promise that neither of us kept, and yet part of me is grateful. Because without those moments, I wouldn't know what it feels like to be seen or what it feels like to lose that. And love taught me softness, betrayal taught me strength. If I had to choose, I'd still let it happen. Every memory, every mistake. Because somewhere in between his laughter and my trust, I learned who I was. Back then, we were just us, uncomplicated, hopeful, before lies became language, before loyalty became a test, before her name entered our story. And though I didn't know it then, the same love that made me feel alive, Kent, was quietly preparing me for the pain that would set me free. They say every storm begins with a small change in the wind. For me, that change walked in wearing red heels and a perfect smile. Her name was Alina. She joined our company as a new project consultant, confident, sharp, and effortlessly charming. Everyone noticed her the moment she arrived, the kind of woman who fills a room without trying. Yeah, I didn't think much of it at first. Why would I? New hires come and go all the time. And besides, I wasn't the jealous type. I trusted him, trusted us. The first time she spoke to me, she was warm and friendly. "You're the one he talks about," she said, her tone casual but her eyes curious. "Rokantur back to Penturmang." It should have made me proud, but instead I felt something shift, something small and quiet, like a thread loosening. She started joining our lunch group, sitting closer each time, laughing louder at his jokes. It all seemed harmless, until it didn't. I'd catch her glancing at him in meetings. That look of shared understanding people develop too quickly when they want to, and he, my person, my safe place, didn't seem to mind. He said, "She's just a friend." And I believed him, at least I tried to. But the universe has a way of whispering truths you're not ready to hear. It starts small, like a vibration in the air, until you can't ignore it anymore. He began working late more often, deadlines, client calls, urgent tasks. His texts got shorter. His tone distant. "Sorry, crazy day, can't talk now, we'll call you later." Later became a ghost that never arrived. One night I stayed late too, not because I was suspicious, or so I told myself, but because I missed him. I wanted to surprise him, bring him coffee like he used to do for me. The office was mostly dark, the hum of computers fading into silence. I followed the light from the conference room. Voices drifted out, his and hers. They weren't doing anything wrong, not really, just sitting too close, laughing too softly, talking about things that didn't sound like work. She touched his hand, just briefly, but it was enough to make something inside me crumble. He didn't pull away. I stood there, hidden in the shadow of a doorway, feeling my chest tighten. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was disbelief, because love doesn't prepare you for doubt. It prepares you for forever. The next day I didn't mention it, maybe because I was scared of the answer. Maybe because I wanted to believe that what I saw didn't mean anything. But after that night, everything changed. He stopped asking me about my day. Stopped noticing when I wore the earrings he bought, stopped reaching for my hand in the car. The space between us grew invisible but heavy. We still talked, still met, still smiled for photos. But something real had slipped away sometimes. Silence is the loudest confession. My friends began to notice, too. "Are you two okay?" They'd ask gently, and I'd lie. Because what else could I say? That my heart was breaking in slow motion? At work, Alina became a constant presence. Her perfume lingered in every room. Her laughter floated through every hallway. She started sending him memes, then private jokes, then looks I couldn't unsee. And he didn't even try to hide it anymore. He still texted me, but only out of habit, not love. "I'll be late. Don't wait up. Big meeting tomorrow. Meetings don't leave lipstick stains on shirts. Meetings don't make you forget to call the person you swore you'd never stop loving." I told myself to stay calm. Maybe it was just a phase. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew. You always know. One night, he forgot his phone at my apartment. It buzzed twice before I could stop myself from looking. Her name. 2 messages. "Can't stop thinking about you." Same time tomorrow. My heart didn't break that night. It just stopped believing I didn't confront him right away. That's the thing about betrayal. It teaches you patience. You start watching instead of reacting. Not because you're weak, but because you want the truth to reveal itself completely before you decide what to do with it. And for weeks, I observed how his eyes lit up at her name, how his voice softened when he spoke to her, how he'd flinch when I asked simple questions. He wasn't mine anymore. He just hadn't said it out loud. The night he finally did, it wasn't even dramatic. We were sitting on his couch, the TV playing something neither of us was watching. He sighed, that heavy kind of sigh that always means goodbye. "I think I need space," he said, just like that. No tears, no fight, no reason, just space. I nodded, because what else could I do? And you can't beg someone to stay when they've already left in their heart. After he walked me to the door, I turned around one last time. He smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, just emptily. That was the last time I saw him as mine. Okay, in the days that followed, I moved through life like a ghost. Work felt mechanical, food tasteless, sleep impossible. But somehow, through the fog of heartbreak, I kept showing up. People whispered, some knew, some guessed. And one morning, someone said what I already suspected. They're together now. It shouldn't have surprised me. But it did, because no matter how much you prepare yourself, betrayal always feels like a first cut. I scrolled through social media that night. There it was, a photo, his hand on hers, smiling, glowing, careless. Yeah, the caption read, "Found my person." The irony was cruel because I had once been that caption. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, but I didn't cry. And something inside me had already gone quiet, like a storm that had spent itself. That was the night I made a promise, not to hurt them, not to destroy them, but to rise so high that they'd have no choice but to see what they threw away. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't fire, it's silence. Or not the kind that hides pain, but the kind that terrifies those who caused it. That was the night I stopped being the girl who waited for love to come back, and became the woman who would make sure they'd remember what they lost every single day. Silence is a strange thing. It doesn't scream, doesn't explain, it just lingers long enough to make your heart tremble. And at first I didn't notice it, the missed calls, the half-read texts, the busy at-work messages that felt colder every day. He had once been the kind of man who'd call just to hear me breathe. Now days went by without a word, and when he finally did text, it felt forced. Like typing my name was an obligation, not affection. I told myself, he's stressed. It's just work. It'll pass. Because that's what love does. It blinds you to the truth standing right in front of you. But one night, I saw what I wasn't meant to. A photo, posted by someone I didn't even know well. It was from a rooftop party downtown. There they were, my best friend and my boyfriend, her hand resting on his arm, their eyes meeting in a way mine never would again. No caption. No explanation needed. My fingers trembled as I zoomed in, my heart pounding so loud it drowned the world. And people in the background smiled, laughed, toasted, while my own world quietly collapsed in front of a glowing screen. I wanted to scream, to call her, to call him, but I didn't. I just stared. Because in that silence I already had my answer. His silence wasn't absence, it was guilt. Every missed call, every unread message, every cold goodnight, it all made sense now. That night, I walked to the mirror and looked at myself, really looked. Eyes swollen from tears I hadn't even shed yet, a heart still trying to convince itself that this was a misunderstanding. But it wasn't, it never is. The whispers came next, quiet at first, then louder. Colleagues who couldn't meet my eyes, friends who didn't want to get involved, and her, my best friend, avoiding me like I was the one who had done something wrong. That's when I knew the betrayal had already been public long before it became personal. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. His silence said it all. And that night, for the first time, I didn't cry. I just sat in the dark, whispering to myself, if silence can destroy me, maybe silence can also become my revenge. Yeah, there's a moment after betrayal when the world doesn't break all at once. It just fades, colors, dull. Music becomes noise. Even laughter, your own, sounds like someone else's echo. That was me. Sitting on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, staring at pictures I wish I could unsee. Their smiles. Their inside jokes, her wearing my necklace, the one he said was too special to ever give away, and the comments below, they hurt more than the photos, little hearts, inside jokes from mutual friends. In a world that once belonged to me, now clapping for my replacement, I didn't just lose love. I lost my place in the story. The digital world where we once shared our late-night coffees, our vacations, our birthdays had erased me pixel by pixel. I tried to disappear quietly, unfollowed, muted, blocked. But every time I opened the app, there they were again, suggested, tagged, reposted. The algorithm seemed to mock me, whispering, "See what you missed?" Days blurred into nights. I stopped eating, stopped replying, stopped showing up at work. My laughter vanished from the hallways. Even the sound of his name, spoken in passing, felt like a knife twisting slowly. People noticed. But no one really asked. They just watched from a distance, whispering. I heard one of them once, "She's still not over it. Poor thing, poor thing, poor thing." Two words that stung worse than betrayal itself, because I wasn't just heartbroken, I was humiliated. My best friend, the one who once helped me write love notes for him, was now the star of his story. And I became the deleted chapter. There were nights when I'd scroll through old messages, desperate to find something real. And a good morning that didn't feel recycled, a memory that hadn't been rewritten. But every line I read began to rot because now every I love you had her shadow behind it. Verkand. One night I deleted it all, every photo, every message, every trace of him. And yet it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like burying someone who was still alive, only this time the grave was in my own heart. For weeks I rang. For weeks I stayed quiet, didn't post, didn't speak, didn't exist. The world moved on without me. And maybe that was the worst part, realizing that heartbreak doesn't stop the world, it just stops you. Can't. But deep inside that silence, something began to shift like a faint pulse beneath the wreckage. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing yet either. It was anger, cold, controlled, quiet. Not the kind that screams, the kind that builds. I realized I hadn't just lost love. I had lost myself, and I wanted her back. That night I whispered to my reflection, "You can cry again, or you can rise quietly." And for the first time in weeks, I looked at my own eyes, tired, red, but alive, and felt a spark. A spark that would soon become a fire. Pain changes people. But the most dangerous kind of change is the quiet one, the one no one sees coming. I stopped fighting for explanations, stopped asking why, stopped searching their faces for apologies that would never come. Instead, I turned inward. Every morning I woke up before the sun, not because I wanted to, but because my mind refused to rest. Verkansen by Bod Kaffers, and Kenny Safer Staries. I'd sit by the window, a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands, watching the city lights fade into daylight. And in that stillness I made myself a promise. If they broke me to see me fall, then I'll rise so silently they won't even hear it happening. I started running again through streets where we once walked hand in hand. At first every step hurt. Every corner reminded me of him. I can't. But day by day the memories began to fade behind the rhythm of my breathing. Work became my refuge. And the same office that once felt like a battlefield started to feel like mine again. I poured myself into projects, staying late, learning, leading, and slowly people began to notice. They didn't whisper poor thing anymore. They said she's changed, but they didn't know change was my revenge. I stopped checking their profiles, stopped wondering if they were happy, because somewhere between heartbreak and healing I realized their happiness was no longer my story to read. I joined a photography class, something I'd always postponed because he didn't like being behind the camera. Now, every shot I took captured the one thing I'd lost: perspective. Weekends weren't for crying anymore. They were for rediscovering the version of me that existed before him. The one who laughed too loud, danced without music, and dreamed without permission. One evening, my old friend Maya called. She'd seen me post for the first time in months, a photo of the skyline captioned, "New lens, new view." And her message was simple, "You look peaceful." I smiled when I read it because peace wasn't what I'd found. It was what I'd built, brick by brick. Tear by tear, my transformation wasn't loud. I didn't announce it. I didn't show it off. I let it bloom in silence like a flower that doesn't need attention to prove it's growing. People think revenge is loud, shouting, confronting, exposing, but the truest revenge is peace. Because nothing unsettles the guilty more than seeing the person they broke still standing, taller, calmer, and unbothered. And 6 days to fall. And though I'd moved on quietly, I hadn't forgotten, not the betrayal, not the lies, not the way the world had laughed while I crumbled. Because healing didn't erase the past, it sharpened my memory. And now I could see everything clearly. They thought they'd ended my story. But really they had just written my beginning. And while they were busy performing their love for the world to see, I was already writing the ending. One so poetic they'd never see it coming. They say time heals everything, but sometimes time doesn't heal. It sharpens. It turns heartbreak into clarity, and clarity into strategy. By the time winter came, I wasn't the same woman who had once begged for explanations. I had learned the art of silence, the kind that doesn't hide weakness but stores power. At work, things had shifted. Our company was launching a new campaign, something massive, something that could decide careers. And guess who was in charge of the proposal? Him, ironic, isn't it? The man who once dismissed my ideas as too emotional now led a team that desperately needed creativity. And as fate would have it, I was quietly assigned as a consultant on the same project. When I saw my name on that internal memo, I smiled. A slow, deliberate smile, not of joy, but of poetic alignment. Sometimes a deliberate, not of joy, but of poetic alignment. Sometimes life doesn't need your revenge plan. It writes it for you. He didn't expect to see me walk into that boardroom. Ken, his eyes flickered panic, then a forced smile. Didn't know you'd be joining, he said. I just nodded. Didn't know either, but I'm glad. Yeah, inside I was calm, the kind of calm that comes when you've already won. And I didn't need to expose him. I didn't need to shout the truth. All I had to do was excel. Over the next few weeks, I outworked everyone. Late nights, detailed reports, flawless presentations. Every idea that once went unnoticed when it came from me now became the highlight of every meeting. And the irony, he started taking credit for them just like he used to, but this time I let him because I knew something he didn't. The final presentation, the one going directly to the CEO, required source files, author notes, and timestamps. Everything was tracked. Every edit, every change, every contribution. So when the final meeting came, I sat there quietly, watching him present my work as his own. And when the CEO asked a technical question about the analytics, something only the real creator would know, he froze. And I stepped in smoothly, answered clearly, no ego, no anger, just confidence. The room went silent. Everyone understood what had just happened, even if no one said a word. After the meeting, I walked out first. Behind me, I heard whispers, and for the first time, they weren't about my heartbreak, they were about my brilliance. That night, I didn't celebrate, I didn't post anything. My revenge wasn't about proving I was better. It was about reclaiming the power they thought I'd lost. But fate had one more twist waiting. A week later, our project went viral online. The company posted behind-the-scenes footage, small clips, candid moments. And there it was, my name, my notes, my late nights, tagged, credited. Celebrated his name, barely mentioned hers, absent entirely. I didn't have to expose them, their own choices did that. The truth always has a way of finding the light, even when you stay silent. Soon people started noticing the shift. He became quieter, she stopped posting, and the same followers who once cheered for their love story now applauded mine, the story of strength, of grace, of quiet success. I had become the woman they underestimated, and that was the sweetest revenge of all, not through confrontation. Not through chaos, but through calm, deliberate, unbothered excellence. And when I saw them again, standing together in a photo, their smiles tighter than before, I didn't feel anger. I felt peace because in the end, the best revenge isn't destruction, it's dignity. It's walking away without burning the bridge, because you know they'll destroy it themselves trying to follow you. The day finally came, the invitations had been everywhere, tagged, reposted, whispered about like some fairy tale ending. Everyone wanted to see the couple who made it. I just wanted to see the ending I had been quietly waiting for. The morning air felt unnaturally calm. I stood before the mirror, adjusting a soft beige dress. Nothing flashy, nothing bitter. I didn't want to outshine her day. I just wanted to own my peace. As I looked at my reflection, I noticed something different. The woman staring back wasn't the one who once begged for answers or cried into her pillow. Her eyes didn't carry pain anymore, only quiet certainty. When I arrived at the venue, everything shimmered in golden white, lavish, perfect. A display of love built on borrowed dreams. I walked in slowly, unnoticed at first. But when eyes started turning, whispers followed. She came after everything. Yes, I claim. Not to watch. Not to finish. She stood at the altar, radiant, rehearsed, every detail perfectly captured for the camera. And he looked exactly as he always had, charming, confident, and completely unaware that the world beneath him was already cracking. The ceremony began, vows written to impress, smiles practiced to perfection. Everything felt like a movie, and I, the audience, already knew the ending. As the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," I felt my heart beat once, just once, because in that moment, I realized something profound. I wasn't the villain of their story. I was the chapter that made them confront the truth. When applause filled the hall, I clapped too. Not for them, but for myself, for surviving every sleepless night, for every tear that taught me strength. For every silence that became my sword. He caught my eyes once, just for a second. A flicker of recognition, maybe regret, maybe fear. And in that moment, I smiled, not a bitter smile, not a fake one, like a calm, knowing one, the kind that says you may have the moment, but I have the story. They say revenge is best served cold, but mine was served quietly, at a wedding draped in white, where truth hid beneath every vow. Because what they didn't know was that their perfect love story was already unraveling. The project Fallout, the one he tried to take credit for, had spread quietly through the corporate circle. Word was out, his reputation was cracking under the weight of truth, and hers, well, she had built her new beginning on someone else's ending. That never lasts. So I sat there graceful and silent, watching a fairy tale built on betrayal, not with jealousy, not with pain, but with peace, because I already knew how this story would fade. When the music started, I excused myself, walked out into the soft evening light. The sound of laughter trailed behind me, but it didn't follow me home. As I stepped outside, a gentle breeze brushed past, almost like closure itself whispering, You did it!" Without saying a word, I turned once more, just enough to see the golden lights flicker through the hall's glass doors, and I smiled again. Because the girl who once broke inside that same world was now the woman who walked away from it free. It didn't take long for the glitter to fade. Fairy tales, I've learned, always shimmer brightest before they collapse. A few weeks after the wedding, their posts started slowing down. The captions that once screamed "Tud forever" and always grew shorter, duller, forced. Smiles became tight, photos became filtered. And the world, the same digital audience that once applauded their love, began to notice the cracks. Meanwhile, I stayed silent, no cryptic quotes, no revenge posts, just silence, polished, golden, unshakable silence. And somehow, that silence spoke louder than any words ever could. Because in a world obsessed with noise, peace is power. I focused on my work, my growth, my life, the things that had waited patiently for me while I was drowning in heartbreak. Opportunities began to open like doors I didn't even know existed. And new people entered my life. Genuine, grounded, nothing like the ones who had built their worth on lies. It was strange. The more I healed, the more their world seemed to unravel. Rumors began to circulate, quiet at first, then louder, that he was struggling at work, that her confidence was fading under whispers she couldn't control, that the story they had so carefully crafted online was beginning to slip. I never confirmed anything. I never denied anything either. I didn't have to. Truth doesn't need a spokesperson. It just needs time. And time was doing its work beautifully. Everywhere I went, people who once pitied me now looked at me with a different kind of gaze, one mixed with admiration and curiosity. "How did you move on so gracefully?" they'd ask. I'd smile softly and say, by remembering that silence doesn't mean weakness, because that's what no one tells you. The quiet ones, the ones who walk away without a scene, without screaming, they're the ones the guilty fear most. One afternoon, as I sat at my favorite cafe, the same place where he and I used to meet, I saw them pass by. Together, but not close. Their laughter didn't reach their eyes. And when she saw me, she looked away. He didn't. For a fleeting moment, our eyes met, and I saw it, the discomfort, the realization, the weight of what they had done. I didn't look away this time. I simply raised my cup slightly, a silent toast, not to mock, but to mark the end. Because the truth is, I didn't need them to crumble. I just needed them to see that I stood tall without them, and that was enough. Later that evening, as I scrolled through social media, I noticed something curious. One of my recent posts, a photo of me on a quiet beach at sunset, had gone viral. The caption was simple. Sometimes peace looks like walking away. The comments flooded in, people relating, supporting, sharing. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that my pain had turned into something powerful. A story of survival that others could see themselves in. It wasn't revenge anymore, it was rebirth. Because true revenge isn't destroying someone else's world, it's rebuilding your own so beautifully that theirs starts to look small in comparison. Their picture-perfect love story faded quietly into the background like a song the world got tired of hearing. Mine? It was just beginning. And somewhere deep down, I knew my peace would haunt them longer than any pain I could have caused. They say time heals all wounds, but I've learned time doesn't heal, it reveals. It shows you who was real, who was temporary, and who was just a lesson wrapped in a smile. And I used to think forgiveness was the key to peace. But peace came only when I stopped trying to forgive them and started forgiving myself for ignoring the signs, for loving too deeply, for believing that forever meant truth. Now, I wake up without checking their stories. I breathe without replaying our memories. And when I pass the mirror, I no longer see the girl who was betrayed. I see the woman who survived it beautifully. Revenge was never about hurting them. It was about reclaiming me. My silence wasn't surrender. It was power. My peace wasn't mercy. It was freedom. So no, I don't forgive them. I don't need to, because peace was never about them anyway.